Okay, so today is March 16th, 2022. This is the meeting of the North Andover Affordable Housing Trust. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means only. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of recordings as soon as possible after the meeting. So before we get started, I just want to do a very quick roll call. And I will call everyone's first name. Just please say that you're here. So Christopher G is here. George?
Here.
Thank you. Richard?
Here.
Thank you. Laurie?
Here.
Roger?
Here.
Thank you. And Rob?
Here.
Thank you very much. We also have a very special guest with us here today, Maggie Cleary. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry, I just had the agenda up on my screen and I've lost it. I think the first order of business was to approve the minutes of our last meeting from February 15, 2022. Unless anyone has any comments or questions, could we get a motion to approve?
Here, I'll move approval of the minutes as written.
Second.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, George. All those well, let's do roll call. Yay or nay, George?
Yay.
Thank you. Dick?
Yes.
Laurie?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Chris is also a yes, so unanimous vote to approve. Thank you very much, everyone. Next order of business is to receive the treasurer's update. So Rob, we'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chris. We have the reconciliation from the end of January, which showed a balance of $866,655.60. There was no activity, either inflows or outflows, except for the interest income of $468 and the GLCAC payment of $1,800. And all the accounts are reconciled between the cities, the town's books, the detailed ledger, and the bank statement.
Thank you very much, Rob. Any questions from folks?
What was the period? Was it 3 months or just 1 month? Just January?
It's just the month of January.
Okay.
End of January.
Any other questions or thoughts?
No, I'm good, Chris.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. I think that's probably a good segue into our next topic, which is a continued discussion regarding the Fountain Drive project. So we'll turn this to either Laurie or Rob.
I don't believe I have any update from the last meeting. Laurie, do you have any update?
No, well, I thought we were going to talk about what, funding and how we're going to move forward and all that good stuff.
Perhaps Maggie's the person we should check with on this subject.
So I'm referring to the email. Didn't you have an update in an email or something?
I'm sorry. We had provided an update in the last meeting. I had provided George Cole with some additional details because he's a liaison role. Okay. I had reached out to Maggie. I'm sorry, and given her provided an update based upon discussion with a consultant, a capable consultant that I had used in a previous life. David Levy pointed out that for a project this size, we could not use tax credits. There is, however, a second program which is defined specifically for this type of thing, smaller towns, smaller number of units, that might be a really good fit. And I passed that information over to Maggie, and that's where we left it at.
Okay.
Yes, Rob had pointed out you connected with David Levy and the Community Scale Housing Initiative, CSHI, and it's targeted for projects in municipalities of less than 200,000 people, more than 5 units you're planning to build, and less than 20. So that would, fit the parameters of this project. I know you mentioned that David suggested connecting with the Chelmsford Housing Authority. They have done a lot of development. Their director, David Hedison, is sort of the affordable housing development guru in the industry. I recently spoke to him. He said he's getting a lot of requests from housing authorities, and they're hoping to hold a training on this type of thing soon. Just, very nuts and bolts basics of how to get started on this type of thing. I let Laurie know that. And so I'm going to keep an eye out for that training. That being said, I also know that Cambridge Housing Authority has done a lot of development over the past years. Even just looking at their website, they're certainly a much larger entity than the North Andover Housing Authority. They have more resources on staff, but I know that some of their staff members work as consultants for other housing authorities as well for, getting these type of projects off the ground. Certainly once town meeting is held, if we keep moving forward with the project and, the funding for a consultant is approved at town meeting, I guess that's where we need to decide whether it'll be the housing authority that hires the consultant or the Affordable Housing Trust, or if it's something we do together. I think Laurie and I had both, discussed that we'll have to be under the same procurement rules and sort of put out a request for proposals for a consultant probably.
So just to clarify, the money for the consultant it's coming from us.
Okay,
The money at town meeting is for the design
gotcha.
of the project. So we should get a consultant. I guess we could just wait to make sure that we do get the money, but CPC recommended approving it. So I don't, we take a little bit of a risk that town meeting may not approve it, but I find that to be very unlikely. So I don't know if we want to start figuring out how we're going to hire the consultant. My opinion, and I don't know how everybody else feels, Chris, you're probably more informed on this than I am. I think that the trust should give the housing authority a grant. I don't think we should be hiring consultants and those type of things, only because it is going to be your project. You are the project owner. We are not the owner. So I don't think that us hiring the consultant, rather just give you the money to hire the consultant. That would be my suggestion. I don't know what everybody else.
That sounds reasonable.
I would agree. Yeah, project owners should be driving those decisions, I think, as opposed to potential funders.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
I just wanted to make a supplemental point on what Maggie said. Thank you, Maggie, for bringing that up. That the main problem, the primary complication with the LIHTC program would be that you have to set up a separate entity that's owned by the investor to take advantage of the tax credits. And that's something that's typically a problem with housing authorities, as you might imagine. The nice thing about the second program, it's funded with soft debt, and it doesn't need to have a single purpose entity that for ownership to take advantage of the tax credits. This is just debt on the property. So I think it really profiles pretty well for what you're looking to do, Maggie. The other point I wanted to make is I had come across a consultant who's doing a lot of work with the Manchester by the Sea Housing Authority. Have you ever come across this person? They are looking to build new housing. They have a consultant in that is quite knowledgeable on what they need to do. They, I think, are doing a larger project that might be tax credits. So one option might be, as I mentioned, David had said that he'd be happy to come up and talk to us and just give us his initial thoughts. And he could probably send us in a direction to a consultant who focuses on this program, as opposed to the tax credit program. Might be an approach. Or we could talk to other advocacy groups in the field, such as CDAC. I don't know if you've ever worked with CDAC, but they have quite a talented development group, which provides pre-development money, which provides consultant, and they're always happy to talk to nonprofits looking to build affordable housing. So there are a couple ways to start the ball rolling.
So would you suggest that we invite them to our next meeting? Would that be something, or do you and Maggie want to just meet with him?
Do you have a preference, Maggie? I mean, are we talking David Levy, or are we talking CDAC?
I don't know. Whoever said that they could come and present or explain this program and how maybe recommend some consultants.
Maggie, would you like me to make a couple calls to CDAC, since I dealt with them before, and talk to David and confirm that I'm not sure he'd be willing. Well, I don't want to speak to him, but he'd be comfortable Zooming up. I'm not sure he could get up here for the meeting, but he did say he'd be interested in talking to us. So I could touch base with those two resources and get back to you and provide you an update if you want over the next couple of days.
I think that's great. And I'm, happy for any, assistance, making connections that you are willing to help out with. So I can make myself available.
I won't worry about stepping on your toes. That was my concern. That's
No, I don't want to pull the consultant is vital. My experience is more in the day-to-day operations of housing authorities and, the housing regs and that type of stuff. So I definitely am happy to take any advice you want in the connecting with developers and consultants.
And Rob,
they're expensive.
When you're having that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
if you have some sort of like scope of services, or can you talk to him about whether they have a scope of services that we can use and find out roughly what it's going to cost so we know what the thresholds are, and then I can help Maggie draft if we have to, because if the services are over 50,000, we're going to have to go out to bid. And so we need to know what the thresholds are for this consultant. And then Maggie and I like I said, Maggie, I can help you write up a bid, or, write it up and have you review it to make sure. But it's the scope of services that's really important. And I don't know what that is. And
I'll reach out to a few other housing authorities too, and see if they've had any scope of services for similar projects in the past few years.
Do you have?
I could pull one up, and we could probably put something there if you don't find anything you like. I would think $50,000 might be a pretty generous threshold. I know I was talking higher levels before, but that was for a tax credit deal. Okay. This type of structure would just be debt. The consultant would have to work with Maggie and her team to fill out a one-stop application or two. But for pure consulting services, I would think that $50,000 might be a threshold that would not be met. But I will clarify that. with David and
Okay,
Sheila.
if that's the case, then we just have to get 3 quotes. So if they provide us with names of multiple consultants, we can just send them a scope of services and ask them to send us a proposal. We wouldn't actually have to bid. If it's under 10, we can just use best business practices.
Is the criteria for selection solely dollars and cents, or is there competency? There's no leeway as to somebody who's done 20 of these versus somebody who's done 2 of these?
Not if it's under 50, but I mean, your standards are responsible, you know, you're not responsible if you are, our scope requires 5 years of experience and you only have 3. You know what I mean? So those are all the things that we have to think about. What's going to be in the scope? How many projects did we want them to do in the past? How many years of experience? What are the qualifications? So we'll have all these minimum requirements in the scope, and that's what we use to make sure that they meet the requirements.
Okay, good. So we'd issue an RFP for the services you think you envision? Is it?
Oh, not only if it's over 50. We can't issue it if it's under 50.
Okay.
And I'm not really sure what this person's doing. It's possible they could fall under an exemption. So once somebody can tell me once I see a scope, I can determine a scope and a general idea of what's going to cost. I can figure out whether they're exempt or not. And if they're not, what way we have to go.
I was going to ask, this consultant is just a consultant for financing the project. Is that right?
Correct.
And then is David Levy an employee of CDAC? You mentioned the name. And
He is not. He's an independent consultant.
okay, all right.
Does a really nice job. He's not sure this was he's not sure that he could work with us on this project because he does mainly tax credit projects, but he was he did generously volunteer to come to talk to us and give us some insight on some of the programs that are available, some of the people he's worked with, et cetera, to give us the benefit of his 30 years of experience in the field. If we're interested, I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Nobody.
I think Rob, thank you for making that connection, and I think we would be certainly interested in getting his insight. And that has nothing to do with the RFP, right? He's going to be telling us what his thoughts are based on his unique experience, and if he's willing to give us a few moments of his time next month or whenever it is that he's able to make it, I think that would be tremendously helpful for us. And figuring out how to what to put in the RFP or even what to look out for generally.
I think I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. But also just sort of like a checklist and a timeline, because I think most of us here, except for you, Rob, don't really know how to go through this process. I mean, Maggie knows through what she has to do for Housing Authority, but doing a project like this, I mean, I have no idea.
Right, and that's an interesting point, Lori. I think somewhere along the line, it would be worthwhile to spend some time talking about roles and responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
The trust should not really be driving the bus,
Right?
And we don't want. My counsel would be that we don't want to put Maggie or the consultant or Maggie or the attorney in a position where they're talking to us at all times, that they have to go to a committee to get things done. There has to be, it works best when there's a person responsible for the project. That person hires the technical help they need, and then they make the decisions and go. We'd ask clearly that we're kept apprised of some of the key decisions since we're a funder. But we want to make sure that we don't get. I was involved in a partnership on one of the last projects I was working on, and it devolved into getting together with a committee every time we needed to make a decision, and it wasn't productive. It was so I'd like to throw that on the table and make sure everybody's aware of it.
That's a great point, Rob. I think this kind of brings us back to that original question of who should be issuing the RFP, the trust or the Housing Authority. I mean, we're the funder, and I think we in the Housing Authority have aligned interests, But just kind of playing devil's advocate, there are some differences in our missions. Ours are a little more broader than the housing authorities, and vice versa. I think depending on the perspective, but even if it's providing the funding with certain conditions that we can, I'm sure, come up with in a way that doesn't inhibit progress, but in a way that sufficiently addresses our concerns and make sure that you have the tools, Maggie, you and your organization have the tools to go forward. But with all that said, I think it probably makes sense for the RFP to be issued by the housing authority.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I just want Maggie to reassure you, we're not going to abandon you. Like, we're going to help you with this. Like, the way I see it, Rob's going to be your contact for technical things and getting all that stuff. I will be your contact to help you, or to actually do any bid that has to go out. Because then once we get past that consultant's point, and then you hire a designer, they do all that stuff. We just need to get the information so that we can hire the consultant, and then it's all on them.
Well, no, it'll always be on Maggie, but they'll do the heavy lifting.
They'll do the heavy lift, right?
Yeah.
But they're going to draft. I mean, she's not going to have to figure out how to draft a proposal.
Exactly.
They're going to do it all for her as part of their contract.
They're very capable, the consultants, so they'll do a good job.
But it makes sense if the trust formed a subcommittee of one or two people that would form a committee with Maggie to be sort of Maggie would be the primary person, but the subcommittee would be there for support and
So George,
and also to keep the trust informed.
So I think that's why we had asked Rob to be that contact. If we form a subcommittee, we have to have public meetings every time we meet with Maggie.
Can we have a one-person subcommittee? I mean, in other words, can we designate Rob as our representative?
Well, we already did that.
Okay, and then Maggie, so Maggie's in charge, but if she feels uncomfortable or something, she's encouraged or should feel perfectly free to talk it over with Rob. I mean, the decision will be in her name, but she can talk with Rob.
Right,
I mean,
right. I think where the conversation's heading is we're happy to be a resource.
Right.
We're happy to fund, but Maggie, my counsel would be that you have to be careful here not to get too many cooks in the kitchen, because you'll find it very awkward as you move forward. So there's a difference in, this, you've been to our meetings. We're very happy to give our opinions, but I hope that we'd be careful only to give our opinions when you ask for it. Otherwise, it's counterproductive. So.
Okay, yeah, I'm not worried right now about, as you said, you stepping on the housing authority's feet or anything. I think we're all on the same page, noting how vital the consultant will be to get this project off the ground. I think, Chris, you had a good point that our missions are similar, but they are a little different. My head is already going to, okay, once these are built, how are we going to be paying for maintenance? Where's that funding coming from? Things like that. And that's more where I do have some experience. In the past, we did, when I worked in Haverhill, we did a project. We didn't develop the units, but there was 113 units that we were able to secure. They were privately owned, but we were able to secure project-based vouchers for. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, is perhaps that we'll be able to put the property in a separate nonprofit, form another nonprofit under the housing authority's sort of umbrella, and have them as, the owners of the new property. So then we could perhaps put project-based vouchers in that property. So then, the rent will be affordable, 30% of the tenant's income. And then the federal government would subsidize, like, let's say, for example, we made the rent $1,000 a month per unit. And then with 12 units, that would bring in $144,000 a year, if ever. And, but the tenants might only be paying 30% of they might be paying $200 a month. And then we would, in federal housing assistance payments, it's, the Section 8 project-based voucher. So that's what I'm thinking for the long term. But That's way down the road, of course, but yeah, I think that that sort of goes with Chris's point that, you know, at some point our interests will not exactly be the same, but
Right, and the good news is it's an established program, so questions, it'll be underwritten so that the, at certain rent levels, that'll pay the operating costs.
correct,
So
yeah.
you won't be dipping into your own, to the housing authority's funds to underwrite this. It'll be a standalone, and it'll be, the details of the project will be defined by the funding program to a certain extent. Sometimes there's a requirement that there are some vouchers on a project, and there'll be different rent levels, but it'll be underwritten so that it'll cover its own expenses, and they'll, if you're approved for funding, you're also approved for the Section 8 contract if there's a piece of that at play. But
Yeah. Thank you, Maggie. I think, we it's kind of defined how we've been involved so far. And, if it helps the housing authority to kind of, as things become clearer as we progress, how far can the trust go in terms of helping with this project, I think will be helpful. But, what's on the horizon that we see is that this consultant. And this is where we still do see that, our involvement is vital and will be helpful in figuring out what other resources can be tapped to make this help this go forward. Does the trust feel comfortable at this point making any commitments, or are there any questions before we do that?
I'm fine with, you mean a dollar commitment?
Yeah, a dollar commitment, and making that next step towards the RFP being issued.
So I think we already voted last time to make the
Yeah.
dollar commitment. But do you mean a big dollar commitment? So I thought we voted to fund up to 50,000 for the consultant.
Sorry, I think you're right, Laurie.
Let's look at the minutes.
Hold on one second. Yep, that's right. You made the motion, seconded by Roger, to allocate up to 50,000.
Right.
Thanks for clarifying. So I guess the next question then is, how do we get to the RFP? And it seems like what we're talking about is getting someone in during our next meeting to talk about what our options are. Is that what we're looking at?
No, I think I thought Rob was gonna just reach out to Dave Levy and talk with Maggie about it. And then I would assume Rob can just report back and let us know.
Well, do we need to be involved in the decision as to who gets hired as a financial consultant?
No. We're giving them a grant.
It seems like we're on a go path here. The next step is to, I guess, talk to Dave Levy about, get some advice, whatever advice he can give on who would be good financial consultants, then get the RFP written and get it to the people, or get it to a couple people that we think would be good consultants, and make a decision. And I don't see that the committee has to get involved in that. The committee, I should say the trust. I don't see that the trust, all of us trustees, need to get involved in that process at all. Rob does, but not the rest of us.
Yeah, I think that's the quickest way to get it
I would
done.
agree.
Well, you too, because you might know how to dot the i's and cross the t's as far as the town's obligation is concerned with an RFP.
Yeah, I think everyone's right. I guess the only reason why you'd have to come back to the trust is if it turns out you need more than $50,000 to get.
Yeah.
But yep, I would agree too.
So I don't know if it's premature at this point, but do we also want to at least start the conversation with someone from home to talk about their ARPA? I don't know I haven't seen anything that they've released.
Yeah, I could.
Information for the ARPA, and also just the regular pool funding that anyone can apply for. Maybe, I don't know if we want to touch base with them.
I can give you a little bit of information on that. as far as the funding for the next annual go around, they really haven't completed this go around yet. And so, I mean, they're nominally once a year, but it's always more than 12 months. And I don't think you're going to get any better information than that. The ARPA money, they are working on an action plan, and it's going to come out soon. And that's been the word for the last several months. And so
Okay. So I guess we just wait to hear what the consultant has to say.
and I anticipate that when the action plan is available for review, incidentally, they're drafting an action plan, then they have to put it out for public comment. Then they have to take the public comments and come out with a final action plan. And that will, I assume, will say when they will release an RFP. But I expect to be notified when the draft is available. And when I get that notice, I will certainly let you know. And Laura, you're on their email list, aren't you? Doesn't Kevin email you with meeting agendas and so on?
No, it's a mystery in our office as to why I'm not on that email list. We've asked to be on it several times, but it goes to Andrew. Andrew gets it.
Oh, Andrew gets it.
Yeah. So
well, I can talk to Lisa. I can't believe she wouldn't put you on the list. Anyway,
I don't think it's because she just is refusing. I just think that maybe the request keeps getting lost somewhere. Or they just use an old, you hit a button because you have your mailing list, and
right.
So, but I do get it. Andrew gets it, so it's fine. He'll forward it.
Are we talking about the North Shore?
Yes.
Consortium.
Consortium.
And then the other thing, I don't know if it's premature, maybe this comes after, Rob, you talk to the person you're going to be talking to, Harbor Lights. Are they somebody that we should maybe touch base with? He seems to, I forget his name.
Andrew DeFrenza.
Andrew DeFrenza. He seems to have a lot of experience in this. And I actually contacted him a couple of years ago about, it actually might have been about this project.
So the printing museum, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, the printing museum, you're right. And he said that project was too small for them to get involved, but I don't know if this
here's a resource. I think 12, a couple of issues there. 12 units is going to be too small. It's going to be tough to get a developer excited about. Secondly, I believe he typically, there's an equity stake involved. No, I can't speak for the way he structures it, but typically developers, are the GP and the partnership, and then the investors, the LP. So there are a couple of questions there: the scale of the project, whether they'd be interested in that, and whether they'd be willing to work with us just to facilitate the production of affordable housing, as opposed to their more conventional framework, which is an ownership stake. I don't really know him very well, but does anybody know him? Do you want anybody know him to give him a call? I'm happy to call him, but I'm not the best bet, I don't think, since I don't know him.
I mean, I don't know him. I've reached out to him before, but again, it's probably premature right now. If we just wait for the consultant, they might have other people that, on the smaller scale, but I just thought I'd ask because I'm not really sure.
Right. Both of these topics are something that the consultant should be able to provide a lot of information, the home and how the project should be structured for this funding program. Sometimes the complication is sometimes DHCD hesitates to fund these projects without an experienced hand at the table. Now, for this smaller scale project and for for this type of project, maybe for 12 units, perhaps a consultant with a signed contract that they're comfortable with might fit the bill. But these are the type of questions we need to ask.
And what role or why would you talk to Andrew DeFrenza? It sounds like, would you talk to? Is he? Do you think is he a potential financial consultant? Do you think, or would you just try to get the benefit of his information like you're going to do with Dave Levy?
He would certainly be a resource. He's certainly knowledgeable. I suspect in this case, though, as Lori said, he wouldn't be a consultant.
Yeah,
It
as
would
you
be
said,
more-
it seems like might be worth a cup of coffee to talk to, but he wouldn't play a much bigger role than that, I don't think.
Well, that's the question. As I said, I doubt. I suspect that a 12-unit project where he wouldn't have an ownership stake might not be something he's interested in.
Yeah.
But let's talk to the consultant and see if they have any suggestions on the best way to approach this.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. And I just looking at the minutes from the last meeting, and you suggested that there might be a need for a real estate attorney or even someone to do a third-party technical review. And I imagine if there's anything else that we need to consider, that the Housing Authority needs to consider, that consultant would be able to provide that advice to us in terms of costs.
Yeah, I would think so. I think this is like our step one. Let's just concentrate on the consultant and then let them advise Maggie on what she needs to do, and then she can ask us what she needs help on.
Right. Yeah. At a macro level, you'd get the consultant, and then you'd engage the third-party professionals, such as the land use attorney, the architect, the engineers, to start drawing up the designs and start having the conversations with the town to firm up what Maggie's vision is, and to start the conversations with the town to let the town know what the Housing Authority would like to do. But so that's certainly step number 2.
And it seems like it's really a conversation for after the consultant gives their advice in terms of what involvement the trust would have, right, going forward with the project, or basically, in terms of committing to what we could do after the consultant does their review and provides advice. There's nothing else that we could really do until that point. Aside from committing to listening, Maggie, of course, and providing support that we can. But right now, until that point, really, it's a big question mark as to what the next steps are, I guess, is the point.
Mm-hmm. So I think we have a very basic grant agreement that I can forward to Chris, and you and Chris, if you want to take a go at drafting something for the $50,000 grant for the consultant, and then we can bring it back at the next meeting to vote on it.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, I've only been here a little over 2.5 years in the position of the Housing Authority. Has the Affordable Housing Trust worked in the past with the Housing Authority on any other projects, or?
Not that I'm aware of. They've worked with CPC.
Right. Yes.
So I drafted the CPC grant agreement, so I'm just going to send that to Chris and say, here's the grant agreement that CPC used. Let's try to adapt it to the trust. Okay. So yeah, it's not, I don't expect it to be anything, I mean, Chris, you know better than me, but I don't expect it to be more than 2 or 3 pages. I think the grant agreement, we actually signed a grant agreement with the CPC for the $100,000 that we usually get. So it's very basic. You'll send it to you and you'll see.
Okay.
Yep. And thanks, Laura. I'm happy to do that. And we could be prepared to vote on it during the next meeting. But I guess to the other members of the trust, if there are any considerations or conditions that you think would be helpful to put into the agreement, please think about before the next meeting.
Do we need to vote on the grant? We voted on the 50,000. I'm comfortable sort of. Yeah,
no, I don't think I think we agreed that we'd fund 50,000 for this, and next time we'll just vote on the grant agreement.
Well,
for the 50,000.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking, is it necessary that we vote on that? Can't the grant agreement be drafted tomorrow and given to Maggie?
No, we need to vote on it.
Okay.
Actually, I think that's
Say anything.
I think that's a good question. I mean, the minutes say we've voted to allocate up to $50,000, which I think does mean that we're giving that money away. But I don't think there's any. It doesn't seem like there's any time sensitivity here that we can't wait until the next meeting. We could set the next meeting to take place in same week of April, second, third week of April, and then we can vote to just execute that agreement.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, and anything further on Fountain Drive? Okay,
No, I don't have anything. No.
thank you. So Maggie, last time I think I neglected to let you know you can sign up when we got into the next subject. So you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to leave. We very much thank you for your time, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Okay, I'll probably hop off, but thank you again. This was a good meeting. I think I enjoyed speaking with all of you and hearing your opinions on this stuff. So like I said, I don't see anybody stepping on feet to be a problem. So I look forward to working with you all.
Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you very much. So next agenda item was one that I just wanted to throw on, which was about planning ahead and brainstorming. I probably could have suggested wording it better, but I just wanted to set the table to discuss possible other ways or ways to continue using trust money going forward. I know right now there's a big question mark as to how much money we're going to be funding towards Fountain Drive. It seems like, over the years, we've certainly invested a good amount of money towards good causes, rental assistance, homeowner rehab. But if I just wanted to set the table, we don't have to talk about everything today or make any decisions, but just wanted to throw it out there in terms of discussing what other ways we can use our money to furthering our cause, creating or sustaining affordable housing.
So Chris, just one thing sort of related to that. And I know George had brought it up, asked me after the CPC meeting about the affordable housing allocation that CPC gets or has to set aside. The CPC several years ago, when we first, I think it was the second year we requested the $100,000 allocation. I had brought them information on how other trusts are automatically funded and the entire allocation is given to the trust from the CPC. They have to have a certain amount set aside for affordable housing. They did not like that idea. The board has since changed, and actually the chair had reached out to me after the meeting and said that, he would like to talk about next year giving us more money because they have $300,000 this year that was set aside, that had to be set aside. And we were the only affordable housing project that came forward. So that's something else to think about, that, we may be going towards a time where they might be amenable now because we've proven, I guess, that we can be trusted with the money. We may be the now funding source for, that affordable housing allocation, or at least a bigger part of it, because we can operate throughout the year, whereas CPC can only operate through town meeting. So.
And that 300,000, that's the minimum. That's the 10% of their allocation. And there's no reason why they couldn't spend more than that on affordable housing. They did when what was Noah's project? Stevens Corner went in. But anyway, it's too late for this year, but
Yeah. As an aside, that would certainly simplify Maggie's world if there was a significant amount of money that the trust would be willing to invest in the project directly, as opposed to help with the pre-development stuff, as you might imagine.
Right.
I did let him know that next year we would most likely be applying for like a couple $1 million if it's there. Well, because of the project. So we need to figure out, we have a year now to figure out with this consultant or whoever it may be, how we're going to fund it. So it's a matter of keeping in communication with the CPC, knowing what we have and, taking it from
Well, that's exciting. Dollars of that scale, when you add some hard debt paid by the rent, might take the funding equation out of the picture completely. If Maggie wanted to go that route, it could be self-funded, I guess.
Yeah, well, either that or we would ask CPC to borrow.
Right.
Or they would, I should say, the trust would have, because CPC can borrow funds. So anyway,
Right.
that's further down the road, but that is something that I just wanted to let you know that the CPC had brought up with me.
Thanks, Laurie.
well, Chris, it sounds like you're looking for ideas or possible ways we could spend our money in the future. And I would say we could fund, we wouldn't fund, we could support small projects that develop affordable housing. And the first example I'll give, showing, because I have a Habitat background, for instance, if Habitat, let's say, wanted to purchase some land in North Andover and wanted to build a Habitat house on it or several units on it, the trust could support that project, not necessarily pay it all, but certainly not pay for all the units, but spend some money on, which is what we did with Bread and Roses. They came to us 3 times, 4 times.
Sure. Wasn't there a complication with Habitat though? Don't they have a structure that didn't we looked at this a couple of years ago, didn't we? Weren't we having the discussion?
I don't remember, to tell you the truth. The big hurdle is finding the land to purchase in the first place. It has to be for our trust to support it, it has to be in North Andover.
Right.
Now I can tell you we are looking at some property that's in North Andover, but there's a lot to be worked out, a lot of unanswered questions. So it's going to be quite a while before the project would be approved, if it's ever approved. But I can tell you that if we decide to purchase this, it's town-owned land. If we decided to purchase it, one of the first places I would come is to the trust, and maybe not the whole purchase price, but some of the purchase price. And then if that succeeded, I would come back and say, well, can we have some money for building the units? And
it's a great idea.
Yeah, great comments. Yeah, definitely.
And there's probably who knows what other organizations might want to do this, would have the same, essentially the same mission. Bread and Roses, they're small scale projects, in the sense that they do their projects 1 or 2 units at a time. And as I said, we funded them essentially 100%.
It's a great idea. My memory is getting worse, George. We had remember for a period there, we were actively soliciting developers and affordable housing and Habitat. We had reached out, and I thought we had reached out to them, but I think it's a great use of the proceeds.
But I think Habitat's response would be, well, yes, thank you very much, but we first have to find the property.
And that's the same for Bread and Roses.
That's the same for Bread and Roses.
Yeah.
But Bread and Roses is more more willing, I think Bread and Roses is more willing to rehab an existing house. Habitat is really looking to build on a vacant lot or tear down and build.
Oh, speaking of that, Troy Road is maybe back on the table again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Uh,
We,
Wow.
I
Well,
asked,
we'd like to
I
talk
asked,
to-
I asked our town council to start receivership proceedings.
receivership.
That's what we were gonna do last time. So I don't think anything's been done on it yet, but it's bank owned and I think they finally got their probate issues worked out or something. I thought it had sold. I don't know if it sold and got foreclosed on again, but it's back. It may not be anymore. I could be, things change every day, but the last I had heard from town council, that was the case and she was gonna look into having a receiver appointed on behalf of the town.
Well, with my Habitat hat on, I would ask you to please let me know what the situation is or something.
Okay, I'll ask her tomorrow if she's done anything on it yet.
I mean, we certainly looked at that property when you first brought it up, but then it seemed like it got sold and there was a new owner and it just wrote it off. Yeah.
Anyways, on your original point, George, I think that's an exciting concept, partnering with a group like a Habitat, an experienced group that, I think that would be a great use of the trust, or propose that would be a great use of the trust proceeds to build some affordable housing.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Rob and George. Just mindful of the time that we have until 6:30. Again, just wanted to set the table and if we were to plan something out in terms of, this is what we could use with our funding, it may help us, especially next year when we're seeking out $500,000 worth of funding or any other opportunities that we see. I mean, we've already done so much. But if folks have any other ideas or thoughts on how we could spend our money, I think it certainly would be helpful, and perhaps in subsequent meetings, just going forward, we could just devote the last agenda item to just this, talking about ways we could use our money. Because Laurie is always sending emails with, hey, here's this opportunity, and it'd be great to say, we have all these ideas. This is what we could spend that money on, just so that we're prepared. So that's just my thought.
So my only other thought is to increase the individual amount that for the down payment assistance program. With the housing prices so high, I think it's having a huge impact on, we have, just as an update to that, there is one application so far. Another person that had applied ended up buying a property in Haverhill. So it might be something if we do another round of it, or if we just wait out and see what the housing market does. But we might want to consider upping that if we want.
Laurie, maybe we could put that on the agenda for next meeting, about increasing the amount. That it might be timely with spring around the corner.
Right.
What was the?
You said there's one applicant. How are they likely to be accepted? Or, I mean,
I think so. I think I would have to check with Jacinia, but I'm pretty sure they're ready to go. They just need to find a place. And that's the difficult part, is finding a place. Even with the assistance that they have, they might not be able to find anything in North Andover. Like these other people, they went to Haverhill.
yeah.
We had approved a pool of funds, didn't we, Lori? Refresh my memory, it was up to a certain threshold or something?
Well, we did, but we also said no more than 30,000 per application. So
Oh,
that was the cap. So we figured we would get 7. We had enough to accommodate 7 applications.
So you're not talking the gross figure, you're talking the incremental, the marginal figure, each transaction, increasing the $30,000 threshold. Yeah.
Right. And I can, for the next meeting, I can touch base with Justine and ask her if she thinks that there's, if we upped it to 40,000, do you think that it would be a big benefit to do that? Do you think you'd see more application? Like, I don't know the numbers, like figuring the numbers. And we knew when we got into it that it would really, the properties are going to be condominiums most likely, because there was nothing. I think we also said 10% of the purchase price not to exceed 30. So we'd have to change that,
Yeah.
10% not to exceed whatever, 40 or whatever. So, and
Okay.
again, I don't know if it'll make a difference. Prices are so ridiculous. I don't know if it will, if we just have to ride this out and then people are excited to hear about it. And then it doesn't do anything for them because there's nothing for them to buy that they can afford. So.
Yeah.
Well, certainly good thought, Laurie. So we can certainly talk about that next month.
And then also we always increase the amount that we devote to rental assistance, I would assume.
Well, we gave them the home funds.
Well, but I mean, if the trust is looking for ways it can spend its money, another way it could spend its money is to put more into the rental assistance program.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you want to set a meeting for next time, Chris, before we get cut off?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Rob. And, just to close, please, if you have any ideas by our next meeting, please feel free to share, because, I think it'd be a good idea to just have this discussion for each meeting at the end. So for next month, we're looking at April. Are folks available April 12th at 5:30?
That works for me.
Good for me. Are we doing in person or still Zooming?
I would suggest Zoom. For now, I'm happy to reach out before the meeting to see if folks want to meet in person, but for now, I'd say Zoom or remote.
I will not be here on the 12th, but go ahead and meet without me.
Well, are you gone for the week?
Yep.
I mean, could you meet on the 13th?
No.
How about
Can't do that
19th?
week. You really don't want to meet without me?
We're lost without you, Lori. Come on.
I will be here on the 19th.
Laurie, I'm the chairperson by name. All right, so how about 5:30
Yeah, book it.
on the 19th?
That sounds great.
Good.
19th is fine.
I'm good with it.
Same time, 5:30?
5:30, yep.
All
All
right.
right, we got to go. So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, unanimous. I'm an aye as well. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
folks.
Yeah, thank you. See you.
Bye.